So the real reason we came here today is so that you guys could meet and hear a fellow that I had the pleasure of meeting 20 years ago when I was living up in Jacksonville. I had a little global enterprise that occupied 188 square feet. It was called Flannery Yachts. And I was walking down the dock one day at the Lauderdale Boat Show, and a guy who I've mentioned a few times today, Steve Moynihan, and I ran into each other and decided that HMY's flag needed to be flown up in Jacksonville. So we came to an agreement, and I went to work with HMY, and that year was the year of the Super Bowl in Jacksonville. And unfortunately, I was really hoping that we were going to have a home game that year. The Jaguars were doing pretty good, but I had the pleasure of meeting through a mutual friend a gentleman who was defensive coordinator for the Jacksonville Jaguars at that time. He started his career as his football coaching career at East Tennessee, if I'm not mistaken, in collegiate ball. And he went from there into the NFL. In the NFL, one of his great accomplishments was defensive coordinator for the Baltimore Ravens under Brian Billick, head coach, when they won the Super Bowl. Mike went from the Baltimore Ravens to the Jacksonville Jaguars. He was defensive coordinator there, where I had the pleasure to meet him. He went from the Jacksonville Jaguars up to the head coaching position at Atlanta for the Atlanta Falcons, where he was named Coach of the Year. He brought the Atlanta Falcons from way back to way out front and did a great job with them, and then completed his NFL career at Tampa Bay as defensive coordinator there. I'm a stock yakin, and I'm going to invite Mike Smith up to the stage to tell us about excellence as our keynote speaker. And I like your choice of hats, buddy.
I like it too.
Thank you, man.
Yeah. Thank you. How you guys doing? Good. All right. Hey, it's not that I like hats. I like to be in front of everybody else. This sounds like it's a hell of an idea, Paul. A hell of an idea. So, and a very good looking hat. Hey, I'm here to kind of close down the event. And I'm not up here to talk about football. I'm going to have some football stories, but I'm really here to talk about the year that I spent in the time where I wasn't coaching. I took a year off after I was let go with the Atlanta Falcons. And I wrote a book with John Gordon. Some of you may know and are familiar with John Gordon. John has written many, many books, but he and I became very close friends, and we decided that we were going to write a book. It's called You Win in the Locker Room First, The 7 C's to Success on the Field, in the Locker Room, in Business, and Life. I can tell you this, because I'm the co-author of it, there's no words over 7 letters in the book, because I can't spell very well. But I was able to spend some time and reflect on my time as a football coach and as a brother, a sister, a dad, a friend, and we came up with these things. But let me give you a little background first about how I got and when I got to the Atlanta Falcons and what was going on there. In the 5 years before I got there, the Atlanta Falcons had been in existence for 42 years. They'd never had a winning season. And in the previous 5 years, they had 5 different head coaches, which is unheard of in the National Football League. They had Dan Reeves, who did a great job, took them to a Super Bowl. They didn't win. He got let go. Wade Phillips came in as an interim coach. Jim Moore came. They hired Bobby Petrino and then Emmett Thomas. So it was a very, very difficult situation. And anytime you take over a job in the NFL, it's a difficult situation. But this one was magnified because when I was hired, Michael Vick was on his way to federal prison for dogfighting offenses. Bob Petrino quit after 10 games and just left a note on everyone's locker and left. Can you imagine how this organization was feeling about themselves at that point in time? People asked me, they said, Smitty, how did you get that job? I said, I don't think anybody else wanted the damn thing. So it was a mess. And I'm blessed that Arthur Blank and the people there decided that I was going to be having an opportunity to run the organization. But I want to tell you, it was tough. When you take over in that type of situation, it's very tough. But I've always had a mantra. I'm the oldest of 8 kids. My mom and dad are both educators. My wife's mom and dad are both educators, so I come from an educator background. But my mantra has always been this: I never have a bad day. I might have bad moments in the day, but at the end of the night, I've done it almost every day of my adult life. At the end of the night and the end of the day, I try to sit back and say, okay, we had some bad moments, but what were the good moments of that day? And I tell you what, it changed and it made me a completely different person. And I know that this mantra has helped me in so many ways, not only in business, but in life. And I want to tell you, I heard this morning, that panel this morning that I had a chance to sit in, very, very informative. And it was so impressive to hear the words coach. I heard it probably 6 or 7 times. Mentor a couple of times. And teammate. We're all in a team. We just don't know all the time which team it's in. Your family's a team. Your church is a team. Your job is a team. The organizations that you choose to support and be in, those are all teams. We're all in teams. We've got leaders. Paul is a coach. He's coaching somebody. I used to tell all my players, you're all coaching somebody. The 3rd-year player's working and helping the 1st-year player. The 10th-year player's helping the 7th-year player. We're all coaches. So after I got let go, after five winning seasons, 2 seasons, we got our butt kicked too many times. And in the NFL, you know what they say? It's not for long. It isn't. I took some time off, and I sat down and wrote a book. But we sat down, and it was very therapeutic to write. And any of you that have read it or have read anything from John Gordon will understand this. We decided to write a book about 7 C's. And again, remember, there's nothing over 7 letters, okay? And we decided to dive into these C's from our experiences. And I'm going to share them with you today. I'm not going to talk about X's and O's, but I'm going to share with you the 7 C's. And I hope some of you will write them down. The first one is culture. I'm going to talk a little bit about how you build a culture and why the culture is important. Number 2 is contagious. Number 3 is consistency. Number 4 is communicate. Number 5 is connect. Number 6 is commitment. And number 7 is caring. And these 7 C's have helped me in so many endeavors in my lifetime. Once I started to talk with John and put this together. These 7 C's, and we're going to dive into them here for a little bit. And we're going to talk football, but we're going to talk life. So the first C is culture. And when you talk about culture, we all know the culture of the team is the shared purpose and the attitudes and the values and the goals and the practices and the behaviors and the habits of a team. Some part of your culture may have started 15 years ago, some of it 100 years ago, some of it 2 weeks ago. But it's always interchanging, and it's so important. In the culture of the team, by far, it's not the Billies and Joes and all the players and the coaches. The culture of the team is the driving force that's going to create resiliency, toughness, passion, and attitude. Let me repeat those. Resiliency, toughness, passion, and attitude. Those 4 attributes, in my mind, are the pillars of building a team and an organization. Now, when I talk about passion, I don't want people to get it confused, because some people do. They get passion confused with emotions. There's a big difference between emotions and passion. Passion is a belief in something. You believe in it. Emotion is a feeling. It's just a feeling about something. You know, and how often do our feelings change? Hey, my 22-year-old daughter, they change like that. Passionate is being well-versed on a subject. When you're passionate about something, you're well-versed. I'm passionate about football. I'm passionate about living. I'm passionate about fly fishing. Right now, I'm not too passionate about golf, because 2 days ago, I friggin' had 7 double bogeys. I'm not into it now. But the emotional reactions, they're all spur of the moments. Now, I'm emotional about golf. Let me tell you, I'm not passionate about it. But these core things are the most important thing in my mind. The second C, because let me back up and tell you, your culture, it changes. It's never static. It's changing all the time. The second one is contagious. And some people say, what, contagious? I'm not talking about COVID. I'm not talking about the flu. I'm talking about contagious leadership and interaction that is the transfer of purpose, passion, optimism, and belief. That's what a contagious person does. And when you understand it, I used to tell my players, first meeting I'd come to, I'd ask them, are you a germ or are you vitamin C? It's real simple. I don't want a bunch of germs on my team. I don't want to be hanging around a bunch of germs. I want vitamin C, taking good things in. And vitamin C protects you. A germ, it infects you. So you've got to make a decision. Are you vitamin C or are you a germ? To be a positive leader, you've got to approach challenges the majority of the time, not all the time, but the majority of the time, you got to be uplifting to the people that you're leading. And I had the honor to coach some great players. And there's no set thing that says this is good, this is contagious. I've had guys like Ray Lewis, Hall of Famer, got to coach him. Ray, if you weren't in line with him, what was going on, he was going to grab you, get you going, and make you get in line with the rest of us. Great leader, Hall of Famer. On the opposite spectrum, I had the opportunity to coach Tony Gonzalez. You guys know who Tony Gonzalez is? The tight end, played for me in Atlanta, Kansas City Chiefs. 180 degrees on the opposite end of the spectrum. Tony was a California dude. I can see Tony sitting on a yacht, right, with the slide there in the back, and when he gets hot, go down and take the slide right off. That's what Tony was like. But they were two completely different guys. Ray was in your face. Tony was laid back. But let me tell you, both of them were fantastic leaders. I'll tell you a story about Tony Gonzalez. We signed him to a free agent contract. Big to do. We're getting Matt Ryan a tight end that he can throw the football to. I'm looking out there. He comes in for the first training camp. I look out there, out of my office, and Tony's out there 30 minutes before practice. And he's out there, boom, had a kid throwing balls to him. Next thing I know, boom, 30 minutes. I don't say anything. Tony has his first practice with the Falcons. This goes on for the whole 2 weeks that we're there working. Comes back the next time. Tony's out there. I called Tony up to my office. I said, Tony, I got to ask you. I said, you're going to the Hall of Fame. You've caught 1,000 balls in competition. Why in the hell are you out there that early? He said, Coach, when I was a rookie, I had 4 drops. I had 4 drops in a season. I wanted to make sure I made a pact with myself that I was going to do everything in my power to go through a season and have 0 drops. And this guy, 16 years into it, is out there doing it. Guess what happens? I look out there 2 days later, Roddy White, wide receiver, out there catching balls with him. Next day, here comes Harry Douglas, out there catching balls with him. We go out to the next session, which is a month later. I look out there, there's half the friggin' football team's out there practicing because Tony Gonzalez was out there doing something that he had done his whole life, his whole professional life after his rookie year. It's just amazing how you have contagious people. Ray was in your face. Tony never said a word. Tony never said a word. You've got to be positively contagious. I'm going to ask you, I want to know, is there anybody in here that knows what an energy vampire is? I see you shaking. Yeah, put your hand, right? Energy vampires, right? Okay, they're the folks that come to a meeting. Oh, now where I see we're talking. They come to the meeting and they suck all the energy out. Nobody else wants to say anything. Nobody else wants to do anything because you've got energy vampires on your team. You cannot be successful as a team and as an organization if you got energy vampires. I had a long talk with Mark Richt about energy vampires. Mark is from Miami, played at Miami, head coach at the University of Georgia. He calls me up and he says, Smitty, you're not going to believe this. He says, I've got this great idea and I hope it works. I'm going to get rid of all the energy vampires on our team. I said, Mark, if you do, you're probably going to get rid of some good players. And he said, well, I'm going to do everything in my power. I said, how you doing it? He says, Mike, I've got a frame that has no picture in it, and then I have another frame that has no picture in it. And when one of my players acts like an energy vampire, guess what I did? I took his picture, his 8x10 picture, and put it in the frame in front of all of his teammates. I said, Mark, that is a hell of an idea. I said, I can't believe that you came up with something like that. And know what happened? It took about 2 weeks, and there weren't any more energy vampires. He said that the whole attitude changed. You can't be successful with having energy vampires. How about this? Do you know what a CC is? I don't know. Maybe in your business it's you know what we call it? We call it chronic complainers, right? How many people know chronic complainers? Yep. Right? Okay, how many people? They're sometimes they're the people that, here's $100, and they would complain because it wasn't 520s. Because they couldn't, the place they were going to go spend it, they needed 5s and 10s. Those types of people, when you have chronic complainers on your team and in your organization, you can't succeed. We took from John Gordon's book, The No Complaining Rule, we did it in Atlanta for one whole season. We did it, we called it the No Complaining Season, and every one of us wore a band. It said no complaining. And I told the guys, I said, guys, we're all going to wear these. Everybody in the organization is going to wear them. You can complain, but when you have a complaint, you need to bring the complaint to me and come with a suggestion of how we're going to fix the complaint. Guess what happened? We got about three or four complaints. And what happened is you think about complaining, boom. And chronic complainers, they like to compete. You get in the cafeteria and, oh man, how bad is this? But I got something that's worse, and then it just multiplies and just goes on, and it's all this negative stuff. So those are two ways to be positively contagious. The third, and it's probably the one that's the hardest thing to really get guys to understand, is that if you're the leader of the team or the organization, you got to be consistent, and that's the next C. If you're not consistent in how you react and work with the people that you're around, you've got no chance to be a successful leader. Consistency is the key on everything that we do. You got to be, and I used to tell our coaches and our players, you got to be the same whether it's a win or a loss. You can't be different based on the result of the game. As a leader, you can't be different because we didn't get that sale or this month we're down. Now, you've got to figure out how to motivate or figure out why we have the problem, but don't change who you are. You know, you're all happy when we have a sale. Yeah, great, we have a win. And then when you lose, it's like, who is this guy? You know, God, shoot, I got to come to work with my dang steel underwear on. So when you have success, you need to be prepared when you're consistent to guard against this real bad disease that's out there in business and everything that we do in our lives. And it's called complacency. How many people that we work with are up like this for a couple months, then they're down like this because they got complacent in what they accomplished yesterday, last week, last quarter? I used to tell the players, guys, whatever we did yesterday, whatever we did last week, whatever we did last season's going to have no bearing on what we're going to do tomorrow, next game, next week. And I was guilty of letting my football team get complacent. It cost me my job. I'll be quite frank with you. I bought into it. We lost to the San Francisco 49ers when we had the ball 4th and 6 at the 6-yard line to go to the Super Bowl, and we threw an incomplete pass. All off season, the owner, the writers, the fans, guess what they were saying? We're 6 yards from the Super Bowl. Every decision we made, we're 6 yards from the Super Bowl. We were 6 yards from the Super Bowl. Not so fast. We got to know that's last season, not this season. We made decisions, and I bought into them and was part of the decision-making process based on every decision we made. It wasn't, is he going to make us a better team? It was, can this guy help us and get us to the Super Bowl? The owner, the general manager, and including me. In the next 2 seasons, guess what happened? We'd gone 4 straight years, won more games than anybody in the entire NFL over those 4 years. We went 4-12, 6-10 to being unemployed. Not for long. And I let it happen. So I just want, I want to talk, I'm talking about these things, and I hope you can take them and use them with your family, with your business, with the business, and make sure that you guys can take something away from it. The 4th C is communicate. And the best communicators are the best listeners. They're not the best orators. I know that for a fact. The best communicators are the best listeners. The people that can talk, they can talk and talk, they're usually not the best communicators. Because most of the time they're talking, and there's so much out there that something's obviously going to stick and they're going to be right. They'll find some way to be right. And you've got to be an over-communicator. I used to say this, and John Gordon and I talked about it. Think about this with your own relationships, business and at home. When there is a lack of communication or a void in the communication, what fills it? Negativity. I mean, if my wife Julie, she's upset and she's not talking to me or something like that, what's the first thing that goes to your mind? Oh shit, excuse me. Not that you guys have probably heard that word before, but I've obviously done something wrong. She's mad at me, right? That's when there's when there's that void, it doesn't fill up with positives. 99.9% of the times it fills up with negativity. And we want to avoid negativity. When you're talking about communicating to your team, make sure that everybody in the organization is sharing the same message. I think it's super important when you get mixed messages going. So if you're at the top of the org chart, make sure that everybody in the organization is giving the same message, and they're just not giving it lip service, they're modeling the message. It's so important that they model the message. This next one it sounds simple, but it might be the hardest, and that's connection. You know, to be successful as a team, you can't be individuals, you all got to connect. And that's tough now, and it's getting tougher. The best way that I know to connect with someone is to sit across the table and have a conversation face to face with them. In this day and time, is that possible? It is possible, but does it have? I heard someone say yes. It's very possible. But how many times are we trying to connect via email, via Zoom calls? We're not having that personal interaction. And yes, we found out that we can do it because we did it through the COVID protocols, but it's very, very difficult to connect, and we need to work on it. And creating a connected team, to me, is the most important thing you can do as a coach or as a leader. I used to tell my team this because John Gordon told me it. Team beats talent when talent is not a team. Let me say that again. Team beats talent when talent's not a team. There's all kinds of ways that we would work with one another to help each other bond. We would do things like, I took all of my rookies every year to get golf lessons. And Mr. Blank looked at me and said, "Why are you doing this?" Well, it was twofold. One, it's a sport that you can play your entire life. It's a sport where you can have interaction in business. There's a lot of things that go on a golf course that are business related. And then the most important thing for me when I was in Atlanta was there's a whole lot of damn things in downtown Atlanta that guys can do in the early afternoon, sitting in a bar, hanging out, where if I got them on the golf course, I know they're going to be there for 4.5 or 5 hours, and they're not going to be in downtown Atlanta. So it was twofold, but you've got to work on connecting. We did things like having family nights with our organization. During the season, all the families would come, all the coaches' wives would come, their kids would come. Every Tuesday night during the season, just to connect as families. We did things for the players besides the golf. We did fishing. In the off season, we did fishing events. We would do a Wednesday night meal where we would have a guest chef, and all the team would come and eat, and one player would set the menu, and there was no limits. And I want to tell you, when I told them there was no limits, it got crazy. I mean, we were at Wagyu beef, Wagyu beef, lobsters coming in, getting flown in from Boston. But it was good. But here's the thing. It's easy to make that first connection. Staying connected is the problem. It's like a marriage. You got to work at it. You can't just say, oh, we're connected. Yeah, we're connected. You got to work at it, because over time, you become disconnected. I got to tell you, one of the reasons I got fired is I disconnected from our general manager. Those first 3 years, Thomas Dimitroff and I, every decision that we made in terms of the team, we were connected. We talked it out. We scrimmaged it out. When I say we scrimmaged it out, you know how it is. You guys got people that you talk to all the time. You talk it out. If you don't continue to do that, you're not going to stay connected. I know this. The world's changing, and I hate, technology's good. Don't get me wrong. It's good. But there are times that we need to unplug from this. I'm on the bandwagon. It's all, hey, you know what I call this? Electronic crack. Electronic crack. Okay? And it even is worse when you can go out there and it can tell you how many hours and minutes you were on it in a day. I didn't realize, and I looked down. I was on this thing for 2 hours. Then I started looking at, holy shit, 4 hours. Now, don't get me wrong. We use this in our work. But we don't stroll through Instagram and Facebook. I mean, I get the old, man, I saw on Facebook today, or I saw on Instagram, or there's another one that pops in and pops out. I don't know what it is, but it's electronic crack. And they know how much time we're doing it, and they're going to keep doing it, and it's going to be harder and harder. We're just going to have to go. I go cold turkey. We do things at my house that we have no phone zones. I've got a 22-year-old daughter that will text when she's home from Nashville, will text from her bedroom upstairs to her mother downstairs wanting to know what time dinner is. It's like, dude, right? What the heck? So, we got to work on those connections. And yes, I did a talk one time and everybody was on their phone. And I got to the end, I said, everybody was on their phone. I said, was I that bad? Before we went out. And to the man, they said, no, coach, we were taking notes. So I get it. People take notes. There's positives to it. But if we really think about it, how much time do we waste on this? Take 2 days challenge, 2-day challenge, and look at it and see how many hours you're doing it and see how much of it's productive and not. The 6th C is commitment. And when you're the leader, and we're all the leaders of teams, it's just a matter of what team it is. Everybody on the team and everybody in the organization, they must know that you are the most committed member of the organization. And you got to show that to them by your actions, not your words. You can't say, God, I'm so committed to you guys. They've just got to know that you're the most committed one. If you're the leader and you've got a group, whether it's your department, whether it's your organization, they've got to know that you're the most committed. Most successful leaders that I've been around are humble leaders. Think about it for a minute, the people that have led you. Most of them are humble leaders. And being humble, I want you to understand this. Humility does not mean that you think less of yourself. What it means is you feel less of yourself so you can help the team more. That's what humility is. You can't be a humble leader. Yes, you can. Be humble so that you are saying that you're thinking less about yourself and more about your team. Make time for your team to make them better. When you focus on making them better, it makes you better. It's real simple. Serve to be great. You've heard that before. The best leaders serve their team before they serve themselves. You can't do both. You can't serve yourself and serve your team. And then the seventh, which is really dear to my heart, because I think we have this gene. They don't talk about it in genealogy, but I think there's this gene that we have as human beings. It's called a caring gene, that we care. And I think that's what makes us different from every other specimen in the world. And caring is really simple. But we often forget to show that we care about the people we're around. Strive to be transformationally as a leader instead of a transactional leader. You know, guys that work on transactions, I do this, you do that, and those things don't work out. Be a transformational leader. When you care about someone, you show them that they matter, and you make them feel important. You show your team that you care by being present when you're with them, and you let them know that they have your full attention. As a leader, it's hard, but you've got to make sure that your team knows that they have your full attention. They can't have it all the time, but when they do, they need to know that. You don't look around them. You don't look over them. You take sincere interest in everything that they do. Having one-on-one personal contact with your team, if you're a leader of 50 people, 75 people, or 12 people, you can't have that contact every day. So when you have that contact, make sure that you're looking them in the eye and they're looking you in the eye, and it's beneficial for both of you. I've been a very fortunate man to have coached in the National Football League. I've had coaches, I've had teachers, I've had family members, I've had friends that have cared about me. And I know for a fact I would not be an NFL coach and had an opportunity to be an NFL coach if it wasn't for those people that cared about me. So in closing, and I've gone through these very, very quickly, I want you to hear how I process this. If you create a culture in which all members of the team can thrive, it will automatically be filled with positively contagious people. It just happens. You'll have a positively contagious team that is consistent in their desire to be great and make others better. That will lead to great communication and collaboration, which will lead to this connection among the members. And when you have that connection, you have to have it to be great and do good and do fantastic things. When they are connected, they will in turn be so committed to the process and each other that there's no way that they can't care for the people that they work with. And when you get that going, it's hard to beat. And the 5 years that we won in Atlanta, we had that. The 2 years that we didn't, we got our tails beat. And with that, I'll leave it up if anybody has any questions.
I know one coach Coach has a question for you.
Coach to coach. We're all coaches.
Coach, what was your message on the eve of going up against an opponent the next day that was vastly superior? What was your message to the team? And conversely then, what is a broker to be thinking in his own mind that's going into a deal the next day that looks like it's just not going to happen?
Oh, yeah, like we're going to get beat 49-0, right? One of those deals. No. Yes, the message when you're playing a team that on paper is better than, everybody says they're better than you and that you can't get the job done. I tell them that we have to get off to a fast start. And you got to get started quickly in the game of football and basically make it. That's a $5,000 fine because my phone rang in a meeting. That's the guy that's outside in the car. I apologize. But that's $5,000 fine for having your phone in a meeting. But the thing that you have to do when you're vastly overrated is you tell your players they do it just like we do, and that we have to be prepared to adjust to what they do to us. Because that's the only way. We're not going to be able to stand there and slug it out with them, so we adjust. And I would tell the same thing to people. Well, how many people go into a sale and say, after one conversation, I ain't getting this sale. You know, I'm going uphill. You can't take that approach. So I would just, that's what I would tell a team. And then with the sale, you don't ever know what that one sentence, one word, one thing is to turn it around. Just like in a ball game. So,
What are the questions we have for Coach? Mike, you and I talked about something when we were on the phone a couple weeks ago. And you made a mention to me about the difference between football and selling boats that we do. And you said something about game day and how many days you get to practice.
Oh, okay, yeah. So, coaching football, everybody says it's the hardest job being an NFL coach is the hardest job. And I tell people that sell boats, your job is twice as hard, 5 times as hard as being an NFL coach. Because guess what? We play 17 games a year, and if we do good on those 17 games, we get an opportunity to go play some more in the playoffs. For people that sell, it's game day every day, right? I mean, you don't get a chance to practice. We get to go out there for 6 days and practice for the 75 plays that we're going to run or have to defend. We're only doing it 14, 17, 18 times a year based on when you coached in the NFL. What you do in sales is so much harder than being an NFL football coach. And we had that conversation. The way that you guys have to go out every single day and win, right? We got to do it 14, 16, depending on what time you were coaching and when you were doing it. So you got a harder job than anybody. The job I had 14 days out of the year. Now, I had to work hard to get to those 14 days, and you were only evaluated 14 times a year. That's the tough thing, or 16 times a year, depending, But that's much harder to be in the business that you guys are in than what I've spent my life in. I can assure you that.
And the point is, every day is game day at IYBA. Coach Mike Smith, thank you very much for sharing this with us.
Thank you.